Now, there is another aspect in this sacrifice and in the dialectics with which it is linked. Septimus is not only a promising young man whose mind has been upset by the trauma of the war, he is also a specific social and cultural figure that Virginia Woolf describes in terms that echo those of 19th century philanthropists. Septimus is, quote, one of those half-educated, self-educated men whose education is all learned from books, borrowed from the public libraries, read in the evening after the day's work, on the advice of well-known authors consulted by letters, unquote. He is a child of the lower classes to whom his parents have transmitted both the name of the anonymous crowd, Smith, and the secret vanity epitomized by the vain distinction of a first name, Septimus. And he, the autodidact, who has made a random education for himself and left his obscure provincial town for seeking poetic glory in the big city, where he has been swallowed along with millions of other young men called Smiths. But it is not only the big city that swallows those young people. It is also modern fiction itself. Modern fiction affirmed itself by putting upside down the old hierarchical logic opposing the rational connections of action to the empirical succession of life. This means that its development was linked with the very upsetting of the old opposition between active men and passive men. It was linked with the emergence of a social character that became a literary character, the child of the plebeian, who is now able to live all those forms of experience that were previously reserved to men of action or men of leisure. Ideal love stories or forms of refined sensuous excitement, social and political intrigues, or the pure pleasure of poetry, aesthetic contemplation, or reverie. The half-educated, self-educated Septimus belongs to the family of the ambitious sons of artisans like Julien Sorel, the sentimental daughters of peasants like Emma Bovary, or the chimerical sons of country parsons like Lord Jim. The possibility for everything to be the proper stuff of fiction, the literary emancipation of life, opposing the multiplicity of its microscopic and ever-changing sensory events to the old links of action and verisimilitude, rests on the ability of everyone to live any life, the ability of the children of peasants and artisans to break the borders separating two forms of life. This new capability of ordinary men and women breaking through the traditional separation of forms of life is what allowed modern fiction to part with the old hierarchical logic of action and find its proper stuff in any insignificant event. But it is also what modern fiction wants to send back to its place. From the democratic insurrection against the distribution of forms of life, modern fiction wants to extract the impersonal, anonymous power of life, freed from all the threads linking it with the rules of social identification and poetic legislation. It wants to capture that pure power and oppose its luminous halo to the tyranny of the plot. But from that point of view, the half-educated, self-educated children of the people are accomplices to the tyrants. They want to escape from the anonymity of their condition. They want to have a self, to have a life of their own. They want plots, in a way, love stories, and even in some cases, stories of prophecy and martyrdom. This is what modern fiction has to put back to its place. And this is what the sacrifice of the character I mentioned means. there is nothing sacred about it. It's just a redistribution of the roles, a redistribution of those capacities and incapacity, which are part of a distribution of the perceptible. Emma Bovary, who weaves a personal love story out of perfumes, breaths of air, plumes of dust, little rays of gold around pupils, or reflects of light on rippling water, asked to be sacrificed, to draw the line of separation between the impersonality of art and the petty bourgeois aspirations to romance, noble feelings, and artistic environment. Septimus, who reads personal messages sent to him by God in the quivering leaves, the dazzling sun, or the rise and fall of the sparrows, must be sacrificed to create the gap, preventing the luminous halo of life from being identified with the domestic agenda of a housewife.